So today is the 1st of June 2017, and we've all passed through a number of 1st of Junes in our life, and I hope that we'll all see many more in the future. But this is the only 1st of June 2017 that we will experience in our lives. It's now 5:19 in the morning of the 1st of June 2017. So we've all experienced many 5:19s already this year, well over 100. And I hope we will experience many more. But this is the only it's already gone, it's 5:20, so that's the end of that one. So we're in the 5:20 on the 1st of June 2017. This is absolutely unique moment in our lives. This is the only 5:20 on the 1st of June 2017 in all of our wandering in Wat Sacca. And it's never going to come again. So this present in-breath has only ever occurred this once in all the millions and millions and millions of years, all the kalpas, all the eras of our wandering in samsara. This is the only time this particular inhalation has occurred, and this particular exhalation. Absolutely unique. Every single breath, absolutely unique. Although we've had many breaths, long breaths, short breaths, coarse breaths, subtle breaths, in our past and in our future, this particular in-breath, this particular out-breath only occurs once. It's quite a breathtaking proposition, I think. So in meditation practice, a lot of emphasis is placed upon being in the present moment, not allowing the mind to drift off into past and future. In fact, the thoughts of the past is memory, or sanya, which arises and passes away in the present moment. Thoughts of the future, whether they be excited, anticipatory thoughts, or fearful, anxious thoughts, they are thoughts arising, passing away in the present moment. This is the sankhara khandha. So in the present moment, there is the sanya khandha arising, passing away, the sankhara khandha passing away in the present moment. So we can say that the past and the future are arising and passing away in the present moment. Present moment is the confluence of the past and the future. So being in the present moment doesn't mean that there is necessarily no sanya, no thoughts of the past or no thoughts of the future, no sanya, no sankhara, but knowing sanya as sanya, knowing sankhara as sankhara, knowing memory as memory, knowing thought as thought. So the obstacle to meditation is not necessarily the memory or the thought, it's the interest, it's the pleasure that we take in them. That's something that we add on. The first hindrance concerns liking. Whenever that sense of liking and giving a home to a memory or a thought, then the mind gets trapped in this hindrance. So whatever you like to think about, it doesn't. So the coarsest example is sexual thoughts and fantasies. But the first hindrance is not restricted to those kinds of thoughts. It's anything at all which, when we think about it, that sense of liking and pleasure arises, and we choose that pleasurable thought or train of thought in preference to our meditation object. So it can be thoughts of quite mundane thoughts of family, of work, of entertainment, of sport, anything at all that we like to think about. That when we think about it, we just have this sense of pleasure, relaxation, refuge. And it's the renunciation of that small pleasure that allows us to experience the more profound happiness that arises naturally, spontaneously, with the absence of hindrances, the absence of defilement. So I think it's very important when your mind does wander, not simply to observe the content of the distracting thought or memory as you put it down, but that you observe the feeling tone of the hindrance, because the hook of the hindrance is the pleasure that you feel in it, the enjoyment that arises. And so when you abandon a thought or a memory which is distracting the mind, we also have to abandon, renounce the small pleasure that we are experiencing from that hindrance. There's hindrances that are always an element of volition and decision and movement towards the hindrance. It's not something that just happens to us. The second hindrance can also be characterized as dislike. Any thought, any memory which feeds upon that sense of dislike and that particular attractive kind of energy around dislike, grievance of some kind. It's an addictive kind of sensation or feeling in the mind. So Ajahn Chah used to say, should make sure that we are right first. And he said that once we are sure we are right about something, then we have to be very careful in our relationship to being right. And so when the mind becomes attached to the sense of being right, and then we become faced with the wrong, and a sense of self-righteousness can easily arise, and we feel justified in feelings of dislike because we're right, or we've been wronged. So we have to move away from that whole way of thinking about experience and simply observe whether or not there is even the subtlest aversion in the mind, and whether or not we are enjoying that aversion. The third hindrance, as with the other hindrances indeed, has many manifestations. On the coarsest level, it appears as nodding and falling asleep while we're meditating. But there are many levels of this hindrance, and in its more subtle form, it's a tightness and a rigidity of the mind in meditation, stiffness of mind, a lack of clarity, and the mind of samadhi is stable and firm, and yet at the same time there is a gentleness about it. So it's a very unique combination of the firm and the strong and the gentle, and the and the quality of mind of samadhi is that possesses the quality called gamaniya, or ready for work. It's ready for the work of wisdom. It has a flexibility, a bit like copper wire. So copper wire you can bend in any direction that you wish. It has a strength to it, but it also has flexibility. So the mind which is calm in the correct way is not stiff and resistant, but there is a flexibility about it and a readiness to appreciate these three characteristics. One of the major causes of the hindrance of tinimitta, the third hindrance, is that after we work our way through mental agitation, we experience some relaxation and some pleasure from the freedom of agitation, and then we attach to that freedom from agitation. It's like we've done the hard work and now we're enjoying our reward. But the practice is to be awake. So we are awake to agitation, and then we are awake to the absence of agitation. We are awake to pleasant feelings in the mind. So our stance is one of wakefulness to whatever appears in the mind. We're not looking for one particular mental state as the goal of our meditation, and having realized that mental state, holding on to it and trying to extend its life for as long as possible. If we do that, then we are not practicing for liberation, we are practicing for rebirth in a heaven realm. Because that's what a heaven realm is. It's a pleasant mental state extended for a very long time. And if we meditate with that view or with that goal in mind, then that's the causal condition that we are creating. So the liberated mind is awake to whatever happens, is awake to the impermanence and unsatisfactoriness and impersonality of all phenomena. We're not seeking a home, seeking a resting place in any sankhara, even the most blissful and pleasant. Mental agitation and worry and guilt and all these kinds of thoughts constitute the fourth hindrance. And living a busy life in the world, then there's always going to be a certain amount of mental agitation, which is a result of that kind of environment and lifestyle. But so this is why it's so important to simplify our life in whatever ways are possible for us, and to be very observant of those activities and habits in our life that stir up the mind unnecessarily. So dealing with mental agitation is only partly a matter of technique and skill in meditation, but it's very clearly the one hindrance which is much affected by what we're doing when we're not meditating. So if agitation appears as a lot of thinking about this and about that, the monkey mind as it's often called, one way of dealing, a technique of dealing with this, quite an elegant technique, is a Tibetan Buddhist technique, which is as you catch your mind thinking, you imagine the words in your mind as being written on the surface of a pond, on the surface of water. And the elegance of this, the thing about this technique is that your mind automatically experiences these words in water dissolving. And so it's not like you're doing this, but it's something that just happens naturally. One of the reasons why when we give up this thinking, that the mind returns to the thought again as soon as our mindfulness becomes slack, is this sense of unfinished business. So in letting go of thought, either the first hindrance or the fourth hindrance, then we want to induce a sense of nibbida, or boredom, in the thought. So let's say you're thinking about something or other, and you're thinking, later on today I will go for a walk, and you catch yourself thinking this, and then one technique is to repeat the last word or words of the thought a few times. So I will go for a walk, a walk, a walk, a walk, a walk. And before very long, your mind becomes bored and voluntarily lets go of the thought. So it's not like you're trying to be a good boy or a good girl and giving up something you're quite enjoying thinking about to go back to the meditation object, because then before long maybe you want to go back there again. But before letting go of the thought, you induce this sense of boredom, as I say, one way by repeating the last word of the verbal thought. And simply you can manipulate, if it's an image in your mind, then just imagine it shrinking, 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 and then disappearing. Or manipulate it in some other way, that there is this sense of satisfaction in letting it go. With the fifth hindrance of doubt, skeptical doubt, the Buddha said that there are occasions where it is intelligent to doubt. But this particular hindrance is not the recognition that we lack information and need to know more. We have all the information we need, but we hesitate to make a commitment, often because we would like to have some guarantee that beforehand that this will be the right method, the right way for us. And of course there are no such guarantees. So once we have studied and listened and learned, then we have to make a commitment. We just have to dive into it, at least for a certain length of time. If we are reviewing too often, then the mind will never let go. And so if we decide on a meditation technique, for instance, then give it a sufficient length of time, a few months, not chopping and changing when we become frustrated with the hindrances. There is no technique that can completely bypass the hindrances. So in the beginning stages of meditation, then we can learn a lot from the hindrances. We're putting our mind under a microscope and seeing mental habits and defilements which appear during the day in our daily life, but which is very difficult to see clearly because of all the things that are going on. But in meditation we simplify, we create the optimum conditions for looking at the mind, and then it's as if we put the mind under a microscope and are able to see more clearly exactly how we create obstacles for ourselves and how to refrain from doing that.